Right now, let's head overseas, where earlier today, a blast rocked Pakistan's capital city of Islamabad, just one day after an explosion happened in the Indian capital of New Delhi. CBS News correspondent Chanel Call is in our newsroom monitoring this situation for us. So, Chanel, what do we know about these explosions?
Well, a really fluid situation this hour, Muga. We know that Pakistani officials are saying that an attacker was trying to get into the district court buildings in Islamabad, which is the capital in Pakistan. That person wasn't able to get into those buildings. Moments after that, we know that a car bomb detonated outside the courthouse. At this point, we understand that 12 people there were killed, 27 people were wounded. As for who is responsible for the attack, conflicting reports this hour. Pakistan's own Taliban group has claimed responsibility, but we also heard from Pakistani's interior minister, who is accusing India and Afghanistan for being part of the attack. So the timing here also noteworthy, Mugo, because this bombing comes one day after we saw an explosion happened in New Delhi in India, the capital city there. In that attack, we know 8 people were killed. India's ministry is saying that this is a possible terrorist attack. That is how they are now investigating that attack. And we're still waiting to find out at this point who was responsible for each of these attacks, the one in Islamabad and the one in New Delhi. But just to give you some background and some perspective here, these two countries, India and Pakistan, they have a long history of violence, unfortunately. And again, these are two nuclear-armed nations, and the stakes are high here. The last time that we saw military escalation between these two countries, Mugo, you might remember, was back in April and in May. On April 22nd, you'll remember we talked about this on your show, Mugo. We saw this attack happen in Kashmir. It was a terrorist attack in Indian Kashmir where 26 tourists were killed. That eventually led to a volley of airstrikes from both countries. These two countries were really at the brink of an all-out war at that point. A couple of weeks after this happened, we saw delegations from both of those countries, India and Pakistan, Mugo. They came here to the U.S. They went to Washington, D.C. to speak with officials there and to try to sway favor to their side. I was actually the first journalist to sit down with the head of both of those delegations to talk about what a long-term peace deal would really look like. Listen to more of that conversation. Do you think that international support or mediation is needed to find a resolution?
Because frankly, we are unwilling to dialogue with anybody who's pointing a gun to our heads. It's as simple as that.
Are you concerned or worried that if some kind of long-term peace deal isn't reached, we could see something far worse happen?
Absolutely. I'm worried that in the next conflict, there won't be enough time for a president like President Trump to intervene and coordinate a ceasefire before things go out of hand.
Clashes, Mugo, ended with a ceasefire that President Donald Trump said he had helped to broker. Now, here we are about 6 months later, and tensions between these two countries in this region now appear to be rising once again.
Wow. All right, Chanel, thank you so much for that background there. Appreciate the recap of what happened earlier this year.
For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. 1 Thessalonians 5:3. Now, why am I reading that scripture in relation to India and Pakistan? Well, it's quite simple, because as it said in the clip towards the end of this 3-minute clip, it was Donald Trump who claimed to negotiate the peace between India and Pakistan. He took credit for it. And all of a sudden, it's all breaking apart, just like it has in Gaza, just like it has here now with India and Pakistan, as one side bombs Pakistan, the other side bombs India. At least that's who they're blaming, one another. And back and forth we go yet again. And like the clip said, we just almost had an all-out war between them back this spring, April and May. And so now here we sit yet again, as India and Pakistan are edging closer to war. And like I said here in my editor's note on this article I posted up at don'tspeaknews.com earlier today, this is something to keep our eyes on as well, since India and Pakistan both have nuclear weapons and have threatened to use them against each other in the past. The red horse of Revelation is riding, taking peace from the earth. Indeed he is. So now tensions between India and Pakistan appear to be on the rise again after both countries' capitals were rocked by deadly blasts just a day apart from each other. fueling fears of another full-blown clash this year. On Tuesday afternoon, a suicide bomber self-detonated next to a police car outside a court building in Islamabad, killing at least 12 others and wounding at least 27. Many of those killed or injured were passerby or people attending court appointments, according to Islamabad police. The leader of the Jamaat al-Ahrar group, a splinter faction of the Pakistani Taliban, or Tehreek-e-Taliban, claimed responsibility for the attack, according to the Associated Press, although another commander from the group denied association with the attack. The group has split from and re-emerged with TTP on a number of occasions. And so I'm not going to get into all of the local politics of this situation, but nonetheless, Islamabad has been quick to point fingers at New Delhi, even as it says it's still investigating the attack. The Prime Minister's office in Islamabad appeared to blame India for the attack, calling it one of the worst examples of Indian state-sponsored terrorism in the region. And so, like I said, India is also blaming Pakistan for the attack on their side. So back and forth it goes. Both countries are armed with nukes. We'll have to see how this plays out. Now, also, Wars, Rumors of Wars news. Put this up on don'tspeaknews.com this morning as well. The Battle of Pokrovsk, since we've been covering this over the past couple of weeks. Russia regains the Donbass territory, the Kiev regime's crush of defeat, and of course U.S. media propaganda comes to the rescue as they're trying to downplay this huge defeat that Russia just put on Ukraine. So this is a guest post by Drago Bosnik from Global Research. Now, the mainstream media propaganda's machine role in the NATO-orchestrated Ukrainian conflict is now effectively its primary modus operandi, as telling the truth is just too difficult. Namely, as the Battle of Pokrovsk is coming to a close, both the political West and its neo-Nazi puppets are looking for ways to cushion the psychological strain of yet another crushing defeat at the hands of the deadliest armed force on the planet, the Russian military. Unsurprisingly, the infamous CNN is leading the charge, shifting the narrative nearly as fast as Moscow is closing the cauldrons in northwestern Donbass. On November 8th, it called the imminent defeat at Pokrovsk a symbolically important victory with a heavy cost. The report says that Russian forces appear to be on the brink of finally seizing the eastern Ukrainian city of Pokrovsk, a symbolic victory that President Putin has been pursuing for 21 months at increasingly heavy cost. However, this amount of cope suggests just how frustrated the political West is by Moscow's latest victory. No, the Russian military doesn't appear to be on the brink of seizing Pokrovsk, as the cauldron is already there, and the Kremlin will patiently wait out instead of throwing away the lives of its soldiers. Not to mention that the idea that the Eurasian giant did this at a heavy cost is laughable to those who know what the situation on the ground is really like. Namely, every single exchange of KIA killed in action between the two sides tells us just how grim the death ratio is for the neo-Nazi junta and NATO. And so I'll let you read the rest on your own. I think you get the idea. Russia has basically taken the very important strategic city of Pokrovsk. And, of course, now the Western media is trying to run for cover on this one, as they're running out of excuses for Ukraine. This is basically what's happening, because the evidence on the ground of how badly they're being defeated is irrefutable at this point. Here's another story on Hal Turner showing you how bad it's going for Ukraine. Russia advances 25 kilometers in 4 days, and it will soon advance 100 kilometers per day in Ukraine. So, as I just showed you, the Russians breached the defenses near Pokrovsk, and that was back in July. According to Western experts, the Russian armed forces advanced more than 25 kilometers in just the last 4 to 5 days. At the rate Ukraine is collapsing, Russian advances will reach 100 kilometers per day soon. Russian reconnaissance groups are already on the outskirts of this particular area right here. I'm not going to try and pronounce these names, guys, but the city will soon be encircled. Given the situation on the battlefield, it will take about 7 days to reach these other cities. One of the largest suppliers of the armed forces of Ukraine, the head of the Come Back Alive Foundation, Taras Shmut, announced that the critical situation in the Donbass. He says, we're already losing positions at the battalion level, and when the situation reaches the brigades, the Russians will be able to go to the rear, and the front will shift by hundreds of square kilometers per day. Military analytics say that the Minarod area, or the Pokrovsk direction, the Russians advanced from the east in Krasny Liman and are pressuring the armed forces of Ukraine in the Rudansky area from the east and southeast. Essentially, they're closing in on all sides. And now the advance could get up to 100 kilometers per day in Ukraine. So Ukraine is losing and losing badly. There's not much time left. And so the question is, what will the West do? Will they just let it collapse and go to pot? Or will they actually try and defend it? It remains to be seen, I guess. Now, let's see. Before I go, I wanted to share a couple things with you guys real quick. And maybe I'll just do that in a separate post. I believe I will. I got some book reviews to share with you and some books that I've already read and books that I'm about to read. And so we'll cover that in a different video. And that will be it for this one. God bless, take care. Johnny Storm, Don't Speak News.